Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't. I'm EDJ and we're going to be learning about the road to Cannae from HistoryMarche, Hannibal's part 11. So we're about to reach, the peak of Hannibal's military career right here. Essentially his greatest battles, one of the most well-known and just greatest battles in history, and just the way Hannibal was able to kill 60 to 80,000 Romans in a day, and between death and capture is just insane. It is a military feat that is widely known and celebrated, and I think it might be my personal favorite battle in history. Like I mentioned on and off before regarding Hannibal, he's, of all the military leaders in history, Hannibal Barca is my favorite. Above Napoleon, above Julius Caesar, above Alexander the Great. I put Hannibal as number one, in my opinion. And this battle is just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to the build-up, because this is a three-parter. Chapter 1, 2, and 3. I'm about to binge all three parts on this one day, so this is going to be quite a journey. So let's get to it, shall we? The original video link is in the description. Without any further ado, let's go to the road of Cannae, Hannibal part 11.
Hannibal, now spending his second winter in Italy, was commanding an undefeated army that inflicted losses on the Romans more severe than those suffered in the First Punic War, destroying several armies, marching across Italy at will, pillaging and setting the rich countryside ablaze, seemingly unopposed. Rome's scorched earth tactics of the year prior, intended to starve Hannibal's army, hadn't succeeded. His unchallenged presence in Italy was a humiliation for the Republic, and, at least politically, successes in Spain and Sicily were mere consolations. But Fabius's dictatorship, despite failing in its primary objective, provided Rome time to recover and oversaw the rebuilding of the field army, now under temporary command of Servilius and Regulus. However, feeling the economic impact of Hannibal's operations and fearing defections from its allies, during the winter, the Senate mobilized the Republic's resources. Two new consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, would hold joint command over the largest army Rome had ever put to field, with troops assembled and trained across Italy over the coming months. As recruits were organized into legions, commanding officers appointed, drills conducted, and oaths taken, a sense of trust developed between the men and their leaders, gradually building a confident and effective force that was grimly determined to destroy the Carthaginian army in Italy in 216 BC. 8 over-strength legions, each numbering 5,000 troops, were raised. 40,000 Roman infantry and 2,400 cavalry would form the core of the massive army. Along with each legion, there would be an equal number of allied infantry, 40,000 in total, along with around 4,000 cavalry. All told, a host nearly 87,000 strong was assembled.
Dude, oh my gosh, they were determined. I'm telling you, man, it is amazing the manpower Rome had. I was mentioning this in the Belisarius series, is later Rome had a problem with replenishing its troops. They were always low in numbers and just seemed to never be able to field much manpower. But here, early Rome, Republic, and they could just regrow armies, all this manpower. They've literally lost so much armies, and the fact that Hannibal alone causes nearly as much casualties, maybe even a bit more than the First Punic War, which a lot of it attributed to natural disasters, right, and the sinking of their fleets, that's insane. Hannibal murdered so many people on his own, and they just keep regrowing. It's man, where does this manpower come from? It's insane. Especially after Cannae. The fact that they even recover is insane on its own. Just so much manpower, man.
A third of the Senate would serve in the army for the campaign of 216 BC, while most of the remaining senators sent their sons or relatives to join the legions. A very large number of equestrians, the Roman aristocracy, also joined, and numerous distinguished men served as military tribunes or as war counselors to one of the consuls. Of the appointed tribunes, 4 would go on to become consuls, while 3 out of 4 praetors that were elected that year were all former consuls themselves, with some of them having held field commands in previous wars. These were experienced men who reached maturity in the First Punic War, whose honor and tradition bound them to offer their services to Rome, realizing that the very idea of Roma Eterna was now in jeopardy.
This game, you're not
Yeah, this feels like a very much a all hands on deck kind of situation. You know, this is basically Rome's all or nothing, right? They think we need to assemble the greatest army of all time to stop Hannibal Barca. It's like, yeah. And then knowing what happens just it kind of makes it kind of funny when you know what happens.
For Hannibal, being in hostile territory and supplying an army of some 50,000 soldiers and 10,000 cavalry horses, as well as servants, wives, and camp followers, was a never-ending problem that dictated the activities of a network of foraging parties and movements of the army. But thanks to Hannibal's logistical mindset, enough provisions were gathered at Geronium to last around 6 months, from late autumn 217 until spring of 216 BC. And now the year's crops were ripe enough to be harvested by his troops during campaign season. In early June, Hannibal left his winter quarters, descending from the Apennines into the fertile region of Apulia, with the Roman army following at a distance. After observing Hannibal's activities for several months, the 2 temporary consuls were asking for instructions from the Senate, now that the Carthaginians were on the move again, explaining that staying close to the enemy could force them into a battle. The Senate instructed them to wait until consuls Paulus and Varro arrived with their legions. This allowed the Carthaginian army to pillage their way through Apulia. For a 3rd year in a row, Hannibal continued his campaign of violence to demonstrate Rome's inability to defend itself and its allies, in the hope that the continued perception of the Republic's weakness would cause defections and rebellions among its allies in southern Italy. Therefore, seeking a decisive battle against Hannibal was a logical decision for the Romans. Prior defeats had not yet diminished their spirit, and their resources were sufficient to continue the war. Upon joining the 2 temporary consuls, Paulus and Varro led the combined force south along the coastal plain to confront Hannibal. The 2 Roman commanders carefully scouted the route ahead, with riders patrolling the open country north of the river Aufidius to ensure that no ambush against them could succeed. But the Romans too faced logistical challenges. Supplying 87,000 men, their mounts and pack animals was immensely problematic, and maneuvering a force of that size in close vicinity of the enemy presented further challenges.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know. I mean, we got better at it, you know, with managing large armies as time has gone on, I think. But, like, kind of reminds me, like, when Napoleon assembled the Russian invasion army. It was just so big, probably the biggest army ever fielded, and it was a logistical nightmare to manage. It's like, yeah, they assembled, this might be one of the largest armies Rome has ever fielded. So yeah, it's like, man, you gotta keep them all fed, on the move, just insane. The unsung heroes of, like, warfare are people in charge of logistics and who can keep it like keep it together, right? Like, man, they're kind of the unsung heroes of every army.
Clouds of dust thrown up by the massive marching column was visible up to 10 kilometers away. Meanwhile, after raiding Apulia for about 7 weeks, Hannibal was considering his next move. His scouts must have informed him of the large force he would have to face, and he knew that a Roman victory in a single battle could stop his invasion and end any hopes of winning the war. Without any allies in southern Italy, if his army was dealt even a limited defeat, it would have been difficult for it to survive. Too far from its bases in Spain and the tribes of Cisalpine Gaul, where supplies could be drawn from. Any significant losses of men in battle couldn't be replaced, and would diminish.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with Hannibal, is that he kind of put himself in he essentially trapped himself in Italy, right? Like, there's no supply lines to any of his home bases. He essentially put himself there, and the fact that, look, he was in Italy for, like, what, over a decade, I think? The fact that he managed to survive that long with this constant logistical issue at, like, the back of his, like, you know, neck, and yeah, with very limited support, I think it's just a testament to not only his charisma and leadership, just, like, his ability to survive, but that's also a thing. He's in, like, constantly a precarious situation in which, yeah, one defeat, one wrong move, and it's done. And he's in enemy territory, essentially. So, wow. I think that's just a testament to his skill, you know?
Hannibal's ability to plunder the countryside and wage war on the Romans. This would have resulted in lower rations and lack of payment for the troops, which would have certainly caused some of the contingents to lose heart and desert. Another rumor circled in Rome that Hannibal drew up a contingency plan, in case of defeat, to abandon the army and flee north with his cavalry, in the hope of cutting his way to Cisalpine Gaul. Whether or not this was true is impossible to say, but by mid-July Hannibal captured the town of Cannae. While it wasn't the wealthiest nor largest settlement in the area, and was now abandoned, having suffered in the last year's campaign, Cannae was used by the Roman army as a supply depot. Capturing it, along with gathering the produce from the surrounding area, secured plentiful provisions for the troops, which reduced the need to forage for some time. For the next several weeks, the Carthaginian general sat and waited for the Romans. Situated on a hilltop, Cannae was a good vantage point, overlooking the flat plain in the direction from which the Roman army would come. One of the Carthaginian officers by the name of Gisgo nervously commented on the size of the enemy army. Undoubtedly, he wasn't the only one in the Carthaginian army that was intimidated by the size of the Roman host. But, ever the master of mind games, Hannibal wittily remarked, "The thing that has escaped your notice is that, although there are so many of them, there is not one among them called Gisgo," thereby bolstering the confidence of the men and diffusing the tension into laughter. Although there was nothing stopping the Carthaginian general from continuing south, where more plunder could have been taken, he was aware that the Romans...
Yeah, I love that. Hannibal sees that as just, like, makes a joke out of it, right? Like, he's probably unfazed, or at least not showing it, but, man, I don't know. Apparently that was supposed to be like a joke, right? Or something. I don't really get it, but I kind of interpret it as, hey, they may have a lot of people, but there's only, like, my troops are so rare, there's only one Gisco. I don't know. The joke's flown over my head, probably. But I don't know. Either way.
Romans were coming, and that he could not be perceived as trying to avoid battle, for no community in southern Italy would defect to his side if he lacked confidence in defeating Rome. At Cannae, Hannibal's objective was to meet and destroy the Romans.
Yeah, so I think the stage is set. Next video, we're gonna watch the actual battle, which I'm about to jump to right now, because I need to watch all of this, like, right now. So I will be seeing you all in the next video. Bye, everyone.